Earlier this week it emerged that a group of people who belonged to the ANC said they were objecting to the way the ANC's Elections Commission had managed the nominations process for positions on the ANC's National Executive Committee. The group of 16 people says that 200 people who've been nominated for their positions have not necessarily been created properly. In other words, the list was not properly managed. They say the process was conducted without proper transparency. They also want the exact numbers for every single person who received a nomination from an ANC branch. Chief Livhuwani Matsila is the Secretary of the ANC Electoral Committee. He joins us now. So, good afternoon to you, and thank you very much indeed for your time. How do you respond to this complaint from these 16 ANC members in good standing?
No, first and foremost, we wish to indicate that we find the notice of objection rather dubious and somewhat unprofessional because it has not been signed by those who purport to have authored it. And the person who sent it, who assumes the position of a messenger, does not seem to have any mandate conferred to him to issue that objection. And we have also since established that there are some comrades who are now distancing themselves from that kind of objection. So, the Electoral Committee, however, has forgiven those comrades for the omission and the unprofessional conduct on their part, and decided that it should respond to the issues raised. The first issue is to say what recourse are these comrades seeking. The recourse they seek is the numbers, detailed numbers for everybody, which we are publishing through a process that is staggered and informed by due diligence on our part. So that work is happening. We have now issued the data for the top 6 nominations. We have issued the data for the 200 additional nominees. And we are also going to issue the provincial consolidated results when we are ready. So all that work is in progress. And we have written back to the comrades to inform them that all of that is happening and they should give it time and exercise some patience. Now, that's the recourse they seek, and it will be available. There's no problem with that.
I'm sorry, is there any reason you can't release the information now? Why they still have to wait?
It's being released because, remember, we have got to verify that people accept nominations. They must go through vetting, and we check whether people qualify after vetting. If they don't qualify, we have to inform them. After all of those processes are done satisfactorily, then we'll then release the information so that whoever is on the list is somebody who has accepted. And we'll then also keep a register of those that have declined nominations and those that have been disqualified as a result of vetting. So within this week, all of that information will be laid bare and everybody can access the information. Now, while we are still on the issue of the information, it's not correct for comrades to just generally complain and complain as a group, because it means that they're operating as a slate or a faction. And that is not allowed in terms of the ANC rules. You complain as an individual to say, I believe I've got certain numbers, and those numbers have not come through, and you produce the evidence. Then you are able to deal with your issue, very well. You see, there are other comrades who have complained quietly and using internal remedies available in the ANC. Now, these comrades are running a media propaganda against the processes of the ANC, which means that they are now trying to bring the ANC into disrepute, and that's something that can be dealt with in terms of the disciplinary processes of the ANC, and we don't want to go there. So we want them to exercise restraint. If we issue a response, people must then ask further questions if they so wish. Now, you see, they want to address a media gathering tomorrow, so we hear, which is completely out of order and out of procedure. Procedures are there. So if comrades raise these issues, we're able to say to comrades, this is where you stand, these are your numbers. But you don't have numbers as a block, because as I say, that becomes a slate. So we'll deal with those things. Then there are other issues of procedure and not really understanding how the Electoral Committee is set up, because it's set up by the NEC, exercising its constitutional powers. And it's set up as an independent body to have independent oversight on electoral processes. It's not a subcommittee of the National Executive Committee. Because, you see, if it acts like the IEC of the ANC. You see, in the IEC processes, if you exhaust all processes, the IEC makes the final ruling. Yeah. That's what we do in this instance. So the comrades must understand that kind of working arrangement.
Have they given any evidence to you that the process hasn't been followed properly?
None whatsoever. You see, and then they run to the media houses and make all kinds of statements out there. So we were saying to the comrades, try and restrain yourselves and not go there and just seek media and public attention for no reason whatsoever. We can deal with these issues internally. If a simple inquiry to the electoral committee, how do you work as the committee? Who could explain? How are the rules applied? Who could explain? If you are aggrieved and you think you have numbers, you give us evidence, then we can deal with those kinds of issues very easily.
Do you have paperwork or email or whatever it is for every single nomination that was made by a branch? Because, I mean, if you have that paperwork, then it's easy to see what happened.
Yes, it is there, and we don't just dish that kind of information willy-nilly, because, I mean, we've got 4,000 branches. So if you believe 5 or 10, 100 branches nominated you tell us which branches and you show us the evidence. We can then check that against our own records. We've got hard copies, original hard copies, that are safely stored with us for those kinds of purposes.
So these people didn't come to you first. They went straight to the public. And I mean, you know, their documents were on every single political WhatsApp group I'm on. So, I mean, they must have gone, they went as loudly as they could. You say they're working together. Do you think there's some other agenda here? Could they be preparing for some sort of last-minute court challenge to frustrate the conference?
If they have, you know, a lot of money to waste, then they could prepare for a court challenge, because there's nothing challengeable in what they are raising. I should not be here if they were using proper internal mechanisms in the ANC. I should be in the office working on the list and making sure that we publish them as soon as possible. Now I'm here, you know, to just, you know, to respond to hyperbole.
So you're confident that, because, I mean, it's a tradition just before an ANC conference, someone goes to court at the last minute to challenge the process at some form. Usually someone from the Free State, but not always. So far they've always lost, not in the Free State. You're confident that if that happens, it may well, that your process will stand up to proper scrutiny. So in other words, the process won't be delayed because of anything your body has done.
No, not at all. Remember, these rules are the rules that have been approved by the National Executive Committee in its entirety. And they've been published long time ago. So to try and challenge them on the eve of conference is disingenuous and dishonesty on their part.
So all the data is there. You'll make it public. I'm a journalist, so I want to see it as quickly as possible. At this stage, do you know when you'll be able to give us all of that information?
Yeah, we said latest within this week we will release them. Yes, because you see the vetting issues are very, very important. And if people are disqualified in terms of the vetting processes, we need to inform them before we publish a list. So those are the issues that everybody should understand, that we have to really nurse them properly so that we don't embarrass people or ourselves in the process.
Are you able to tell us how many people were disqualified? Because in the past, there didn't seem to be any kind of reasons for disqualification. People were nominated. As I understand the rules that were set down this time, if you had a conviction or if you were charged under the step-aside rule, you couldn't stand. Are you able to tell us how many people were disqualified from standing for positions on the NEC?
No, not as yet. By the time we publish the list, we'll then have a list of those that are disqualified and those that will have voluntarily declined nomination, and those that have accepted. So all those three categories will be nicely reflected, and everybody can then come back to us if they're not satisfied.
Can you tell us if Tony Yengeni was disqualified?
Not as yet, because the process is not yet finalized.
Because, I mean, it's possible there may be people on the NEC now who are disqualified from being on the NEC again.
Yeah, we see the rules don't have eyes. We don't look at whether you are in the NEC or which position. It's just rules for all ANC members. So at the time when we are ready with the full list of all those categories, we'll then inform the public and the ANC members in particular and say this is where we are.
Chief Matsila, I must just ask you one or two questions about the technicalities in the conference itself, because this may be important. It may not be important, but as I'm sure you've seen, the Pala story, the scandal around the president and the findings of the report have maybe changed what people were planning to do. We knew from the list that you published in terms of the top 6 that the 2 people who qualified and had received the nominations from the province for the position of leader were President Cyril Ramaphosa and Dr. Zweli Mkhize. And there's no controversy there. There's a lot of suggestions that someone, Paul Mashatile, may be nominated from the floor. You would need a 25% show of hands for that nomination to succeed. If that happens, you would have to print new ballot papers before the election could proceed. Is that right?
Yeah, if there are new nominees and they achieve that threshold of 25% support from the voting delegate, we'll then have to put them on the ballot, and our machinery is ready to change the ballot as and when required by conference.
So my question is really how long it takes, because you can have over 4,000 people probably in a room, all wanting to vote. People maybe, if there is a nomination from the floor, they may be surprised or shocked by it, so the whole thing could be quite a difficult situation. If people have to wait 5 hours or 10 hours or another day to vote because you have to print ballot papers, and printing ballot papers can be complex, I realize that. There could be difficulty. So how long do you think, if there is a surprise, how long would it take you to print a ballot paper for that election to go ahead? And it would be for the first 4 positions.
No, I think we should be able to print the ballot paper almost instantly.
Really?
Because we change the name, we change the picture in the paper, and then you run a printing process, and the machines are there, and the manpower is there, so it should not be a tall order. It has happened before in ANC conferences, I'm sure, and this will not be the first time that we come across such. And if anything we should use is the history of such processes, and we have never had such difficulties.
I wish I had you around when I had problems with my printer. And I think this could be important in the end, because we don't know what's going to happen. You're confident you'll be able to manage if someone's nominated from the floor for any position, because I think there's still going to be deals being struck, it seems to me. So you'll be able to manage that situation, and it won't be because of any technical problems that there'll be a delay.
Yes, any decision by conference, we will be able to process that decision as the electoral committee. As I say, the facilities are there, ready to be utilized, to the full extent possible.
Do you believe you'll be able to have the election for the first 4 positions, including leader of the ANC, on the Friday night of the conference?
Yes, I think that's what the program indicates. But I think early next week, we'll be able to take you through detailed steps on the voting process, and the whole conference program will be articulated by the steering committee that is responsible for the logistics of the conference. But all of that detail is going to come as a package.
And we'll probably get an announcement when? Saturday night?
Yeah, I think there's an indication that there will be a special NEC meeting convened where we'll also report, if required, as the electoral committee on our work. And then the others who are dealing with logistics and the planning and the program will also report. Then thereafter, as usual, the NEC will then have a press conference to inform you of the details. So at this stage, I think let's just wait a bit, and then we'll get all the details at the right time.
You can see my impatience. Chief Livhuwani Matsila, I really appreciate you coming in. Thank you very much indeed. The Secretary of the ANC's Electoral Committee. You can imagine how little sleep he's going to be getting over the next few days.